Hey everybody, welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to get started. I'm so excited to have you all here. We're going to talk about our mentor workshop and the next step to making the most out of this mentor relationship. If you are watching the recording of this, you can fast forward by about 4-ish minutes. We're going to get started at exactly 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. on the East Coast, 4 p.m. on the West Coast. I was not doing math, but anyways, we're going to get started shortly. If you're watching the live session, welcome. Introduce yourself in the comments section. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to get started. I'm just going and making it a live stream on our website right now. There it is. Boom. Live stream created. Alrighty, everybody, welcome aboard. I'm excited to get started. So how has the first month-ish of the mentor program been for you so far? Hey, Christine, welcome aboard. Welcome here. Thanks for introducing yourself. How was your first month of the mentor relationship been? So we're going to talk about a variety of different topics. We're going to talk about obviously the 3 keys to being successful in this mentor relationship. We're going to then talk about some other key things for just setting expectations and setting proper expectations for the mentor relationship. And then we're going to talk about setting a vision and helping your mentee have balance with the mentor relationship. So those are the things we're going to talk about, is just expectation setting, setting a vision, and identifying, helping your student find balance. Hey, Andrew, welcome. My week has been good. My week has been very good. Yeah, I've been doing a lot of fun things. I like when my calendar is filled up because I get to do some work that I love to do. And so the fact that I get to do all the things that I get to do, I feel very lucky. I feel very blessed and just grateful that I get to do the things that I get to do for my work. So my work's been great. But how about you, Andrew? How's your week been? How about you, Christine? How's your week been? Hey, Christine, you were getting some emails. My colleague Megan will follow up with you with some information just to give you the information you need for the next steps. But yeah, thanks for commenting. Like I said, my colleague Megan, she'll email you at support@ambition-in-motion.com. But yeah, she'll follow up with you, give you all the stuff. But Andrew, how's your week been? Thanks for asking, by the way. Hey, Kyle, welcome. Welcome. How are you? How's your week been? By the way, I love that you're asking it, Andrew. It's a good way to get this started. We're gonna get started in about 2 minutes. So Andrew, your first month went pretty well. Had a meeting with your mentee earlier this week. Felt like there was a pretty good first contact. That's awesome. That's amazing. I mean, honestly, these mentor relationships are meant to be mutually beneficial to both sides. It's not just you're the mentor, top-down relationship. It's supposed to be horizontal. I'm a big believer in this horizontal mentorship, which just means 2 people open to learning from each other. And that's how really you can make this relationship really successful and really positive for you and your student. So that's awesome. Does anybody else want to share how they're doing this week, or any updates from their mentor relationship so far? Christine, great. You're having a week here in not so sunny California. Oh, really? Is this the rare time of year that California doesn't have incredibly perfect weather? I have heard. My best friend does live in Los Angeles. He told me about this thing called June gloom in Los Angeles, which I guess means like the sun may not burn off all the fog and it just kind of is foggy there, which is so surprising because in most places in June, it's just beautiful sunny weather. For the most part. I live in Austin, Texas, so it's starting to get warmer. I'm really enjoying the weather here. It's my first year in Austin, so I've not really been used to Januaries and Februarys and Marches where you've got 70-degree weather. Granted, we also had this crazy frozen tundra, but for anybody else in Texas who's gone through it with me, it kind of stinks, but we're getting there, and it's improving. But overall, I feel like I'm pretty lucky that I have this kind of weather this time of year. Christine, last month's mentor meeting, you're interested in being a mentee as well as a mentor. That's awesome. Well, hey, in terms of the mentor program, if you've not already signed up as an alumni mentee, Christine, we can have you sign up for the mentor program next semester, and I think you'd really enjoy it. But yeah, awesome. Let's get started. It's officially 6 o'clock on the central time. It's 5 in Mountain Time, 4 on the West Coast, and 7 on the East Coast. Let's get going. So let's start talking about this mentor workshop here. We're here to talk about setting proper expectations in our mentor relationship, really getting our mentor relationships off to the right step. We're going to also talk about identifying and helping your student identify balance in their life, but also setting a vision. As their mentor, one of the most beneficial things you can do for them is just be that weight to take to be that person to take that weight off their shoulders. They're going through a lot of things right now, whether it be COVID, whether it be virtual classes, whether it be internships or jobs or other things that they've got going on in their world. They got a lot going on. And if you can be that person to help take that weight off their shoulder and help them identify balance, that'd be huge. The other thing is setting a vision. If you can help them identify a path for where they like to go and where they like to be with their career, with their life, with their path, personally and professionally, that can be massive in terms of your impact on the student that you're working with. So that's what we're going to cover today in our workshop. So the first thing, though, I really want to cover, and that is really, oh, by the way, I guess some expectation setting. If you've not connected with your student by now, please email support@ambition-in-motion. We can figure out your situation. If you have any questions, please post them in the comment section. Please also introduce yourself in the comment section. We'd love to see who you are and just help build community. We're going to also talk about ways to handle any issues with your mentees, with your students. So yeah, let's get going. There are 3 keys to success in a mentor relationship. That is your strategy, your story, and your state. We covered it in the orientation a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to reiterate this in every workshop because it is so critical. The 3 keys to success: strategy, story, state. So what does that mean? It means that in your mentor relationship, are you coming in with great strategies, a right story, and the right state to be successful in this mentor bond and relationship? The first and probably most important key to this is your state. Like physically, where are you? I like to pound my chest because ultimately it helps get me into state. But what are the things that you can do to help get yourself into a state conducive for being successful? And so ultimately what I found is that sometimes when you have your mentor meetings with your student, it might be after work, it might be on your lunch break, it might be in the morning, it might be on a weekend, it might be at a time that might not be the most convenient for you, or you got the most energy. And if you come in with low energy, what are you giving to your student? Ultimately, you're not giving your student that much. You're not giving your student your full self. So what can you do to get yourself into a state conducive for being successful as a mentor? And that is get your body going. Ultimately, what we know is that your motions drive your emotions. So therefore, if we are able to get our bodies going, we are much more likely to give off positive energy in our mentor relationship. So one thing that I like to do to get a mentor workshop started is I like to get everybody set in a positive state. So what I want you to do is I want you to stand up, and for the next 20 seconds, I want you to shake it out. I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy those shoulders. I want you to shake out your legs. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. On the count of 3, scream. 1, 2, 3. Yeah! Just let it out. Let it loose. Let it go. Shimmy it out. Shimmy it loose. Get it going. Get it moving. How do you feel? How do you feel right now? That's one of the funnest exercises because I can guarantee you that you feel so much better than where you were 5 minutes ago. And the reason being is because by getting your emotions, your body going, you're sending endorphins to your brain, it's letting you know that you are feeling happy. And it's an incredible feeling. And that's something that you can do in your mentor relationship. Before going into a mentor meeting, come in prepared with a physical state conducive for being successful. So anyways, that is the first tip for being successful in your mentor relationship. Physically getting yourself into a state conducive for being successful. That means giving off energy, positive energy to your student. The second key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself? Why will you be successful as a mentor? Whatever story you tell yourself, you will manifest. So if you tell yourself a negative story like, oh, well, I don't have the experience, or I don't have the questions, or I don't have the stories, or I don't have the insight. If you tell yourself that, you will not be successful. Why? Because you will manifest the outcomes that you've set for yourself. But if you can tell yourself why you will be successful, you are much more likely to be successful as a mentor. So what makes you uniquely, what unique experiences do you have in your life that give you the ability to be a great mentor? Are you a great listener? Are you a great question asker? Have you experienced some really incredible things? What is it? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. Your mental state, your mental story is such a critical component to you being successful as a mentor. Because if you don't come in confident, if you don't come in feeling like you can really change this person's life, you're not going to. But if you feel like you can really do something that can positively impact them, you're so much more likely to have that impact. So post in the comment section, what makes you uniquely qualified to be a mentor? Is it your great listening skills, your great questioning asking ability, your unique experiences? What makes you uniquely qualified? Oh, Rama, that's great. I'm loving that your kids are doing it too. Christine, by the way, my colleague Megan's going to reach out to you to get you set up. But Rama, that's so great that your kids are doing this with you. That's fantastic. So the third key to success in a mentor relationship is your strategy. Now, these are the things that you can do to really help your student work through things. These are the things that we're going to help you with in our workshops. This is the things that we're going to cover, whether it be, setting expectations properly, whether it be helping them work through difficult scenarios, whether it be helping them set a vision or helping them find balance. I'm going to provide you with some strategies that are really effective for helping your student be as successful in their professional aspirations and personal aspirations. But there are a lot of things you can try too. It can be reflective listening. It can be deep question asking. It can be a lot of different things that you can leverage to help your student as he or she is working through whatever they're working through. That's awesome, Rama. Thanks for sharing that. Christine, thanks for sharing that as well. That's awesome. So let's talk about setting proper expectations. So the first call should be all about your mentee. I just want to set proper expectations for this mentor relationship. For your first conversation with your student, it should be all about your student. Learn what is going on in their world. Ask them questions. I'm a big fan of asking them to share with you their story, starting with kindergarten, what their dream job is, and then where they would like to be in 5 years. The reason being is because it allows you to get an idea of who they are as a person. See, so often we only care about our accolades or credentials or our university or a degree or wherever we're at currently. But so many experiences we have had in our life have helped shape who we are as a person today. So maybe they were part of a volleyball team. Maybe they played an instrument. Maybe they, did a variety of different tasks. Maybe they volunteered. Who knows what their story is from kindergarten, but ask them that. That helps you get a really good, deep, intimate idea of who your mentee is, who your student is. Really, this first conversation should not be about you at all. If you're here, if you felt like you're sharing stories or sharing advice, that's a bad sign. And I'm only telling you that because ultimately it's essentially you dominating the conversation. Your student is here, so then they can put it all on the table and have you kind of just own it and hold it and be that person that can support them and guide them. If it's all about you sharing stories or just giving advice, it's not as beneficial to your student. So really, it should be all about your student when it comes to the conversations. I'm a big fan, like I said, asking them, what is your story starting with kindergarten? Then what is your dream job? And then where would you like to be in 5 years? That's a great way just to get a better idea of who your student is. See, once you've learned this information, ask them what they believe is one thing they can work on between now and your next call to help them get closer to accomplishing their goals. It's a great way to start goal setting. I mean, ultimately, goals can be big, hairy, and audacious, but if we don't break them down into bite-sized chunks, it's so much more difficult to actually help them achieving that goal. So asking them, how can you break this goal down into a smaller bite-sized chunk? So then by the time we talk next, you've already started working on an action step to help you getting to the outcome that you'd like. No, remember what that thing is. Write down a note, keep it for yourself, be prepared for bringing it up in the next conversation. So you can ask to see how they were able to do it. So when you meet with your mentee again, when you meet with your student, say, hey, I know that you mentioned you wanted to work on this thing. How did that go? They can update you. Maybe they made no progress. That's okay. Ask them how you can help them make progress before your next conversation. If they did make progress, fantastic. What was the progress that they made? Just be there to listen to them and learn about how they're growing and how they're developing. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. Adjacent to setting proper expectations is handling issue. So you might have a scenario where your student shows up late, or you felt like they didn't come prepared, or they had maybe noise in the background that was distracting, or they asked to reschedule on short notice, or anything that could have frustrated you. That's a very reasonable thing. The first step is to not get mad at them and tell them that what they did was wrong. That is the easiest way to lose your mentor relationship with your student. The reason being is because if your student feels like they are threatened or that you are not empathetic to their situation, they're going to close you off, plain and simple. So when it comes to your student, if they show up or do something that's not what your expectation would be, go through the call like as if nothing happened and take the time to listen to them and ask questions. And by the end of the call, you say this: I really enjoyed this first conversation. Did you? They're going to say, yeah, of course. Then you say, I feel like I can offer you a lot as your mentor, but for our calls in the future, there are some things that I would like from you. First, if we say that we're going to meet at, let's say, 10 o'clock, then we start at 10 o'clock. Can I count on you to be on time for our next meeting? Or when we say we're going to meet, my expectation is that there are no distractions in the background, or that you come in prepared with questions that you'd like to ask. Whatever your expectation is, set it up front, but build rapport first. By waiting to set the expectations after building rapport, you are significantly more likely to have a strong relationship with your student than if you get mad at them at the beginning of the conversation. Hopefully that makes sense. Essentially, what I'm just trying to convey is if a student does something that you feel like rubbed you the wrong way, talk with them through it, but don't get mad at them immediately. Learn about their scenario, learn about their situation, act like as if nothing happened. And then at the end of it, say, hey, I love this conversation. I think I could be a great mentor for you, but here are my expectations for future calls. Show up on time. Don't have distractions in the background. Come in prepared with questions. Whatever your expectation is, let them know. And then ask them, is that something that we can work with? Is that okay with you? And they're going to say, of course. Yeah, no, totally. I'm so sorry for showing up late. I'm so sorry for the things that, I wasn't able to do for this mentor meeting. So that is essentially how you can properly set expectations with your student. Any questions on this? Hey, Tanyetta, welcome aboard. Thanks for being here. Oh, Megan gives some great advice here in the comment section. She says to check if you have a mentee assigned, please make sure that you log into your dashboard. Just go to ambitionemotion.com, log in. It'll show you if you have a mentee, and then you can see if there's a next step there. If there is no mentee listed, then our system did not have a mentee for you for the semester. But there are other ways that you can get involved and engage with us. So one of the ways is through our blog. So we have a guest blog where if you've got great insight on a topic, we love to share it with our community. You can write this blog, send it to support@ambitionemotion.com, and we'll post it on our website. It's just a great way to feature different insights and perspectives about your experience as a professional. We also have corporate and executive mentor programs too. So if you're thinking to yourself, man, my company would really love to have this mentor program or a mentor program, we'd love to chat with you about this and see how we can bring this to your company. So yeah, Christine, just go to the dashboard, ambitionemotion.com, follow the steps listed from Megan in our chat area. So next step, let's talk about setting a vision. So this is something really critical for students, is helping them identify their vision for their work. I'm going to lay out some key questions here that I found to be really effective for helping students set a vision. So one is really getting down to the bottom of what their vision is. So essentially, I like to start with a question in terms of identifying the vision is, if your situation were to work out in the best way possible, what would that be? That's the first question I like to ask. And the reason why I like to ask that question is because it helps them get their eye on the prize. It helps them get an idea of where they would like to be. See, so often we get so caught up in the day-to-day things that we're doing that we lose track of what are we doing this all for? So by asking this question of, if your situation were to work out in the best way possible, what would that be? I'm going to copy and paste that question in the comment section. So this is the first question that I like to ask, and it's just a great way to help set a vision. The second question I like to ask is, what is one thing that seems impossible, but with a little luck and a lot of work just might be within reach? The reason why this is such a great question to ask is because it helps your student realize that some things can be difficult, but sometimes that difficulty is what makes it possible to achieve. Essentially, Roger Bannister was the first person to break the 4-minute mile, but then after that, there was plenty of people that did that. But by ultimately setting a vision for what you think might be impossible, you make a vision of reality that could be possible for you. So by helping your student identify a big, hairy, audacious goal, they can work towards achieving that, and they're much more likely to achieve that, because so often students and just people in general will sell themselves short because of preconditioned notions of whatever they think is reasonable for them. And we want to eradicate that because ultimately anything's possible. There are plenty of new things that are going on. The third question I like to ask is, what will you commit to today, this week, and this month? This is a great question because it now starts to get into this accountability stage. It gets you into this position where you're actually having your student be accountable for what they can do today, this week, and this month to help them get to where they like to be. Because ultimately, if they can't commit to where they like to be, this is just a dream. This is just a wish. A wish without a plan is just, or rather, I think the sentiment is, the saying is, a goal without a plan is a wish. So this question allows them to create a plan of what they can commit to doing today, this week, and this month to help them get to that goal that they like to achieve for themselves. The fourth question I like is similar to that second question, is having a role model. And the question is, who do you know that thinks big? Who do you know that thinks big? It's a great question to ask because it allows them to start formulating an idea of people, human beings, other human beings that have done things that are really big. Because so often we tell ourselves things are impossible because we have not seen anybody else do it. But the moment we start focusing on somebody who has set really big dreams and really big goals, we can then realize that those goals are reasonable. I mean, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So ultimately, if we can start setting a vision for what we can achieve and accomplish that's higher than where we're currently working at, we're much more likely to get to that elevated level. And the fifth question I like to ask to help students identify their vision is, what in your life keeps you thinking small? Now, this is a very introspective reflection type of question. The reason why it's so important to ask is because the reason why we fall back on bad habits is because we have people or things in our life that more or less marginalize our mentality. They tell us that we can't achieve some outcome. We can't achieve this goal that we're setting for ourselves. And so what ends up happening is we end up selling ourselves short. We end up not getting to where we like to be because somebody or something has kept us thinking small. So by identifying what that specific thing is or who that specific person is, we can actually consciously eradicate that so we're not spending our time around people that are negative or keeping us thinking small. Rama, that's awesome. So your mentee had a big goal. You had to break it down into smaller tasks that can help her achieve her goal and get closer. I think that's fantastic mentorship right there. Thanks for sharing that, Rama. That's excellent. That's so cool. The other thing that I want to talk about is helping your student find balance. Balance is so critical. Now, you might think, oh, they're not a full-time professional. Like, they got school, they got classes. You know, that's not nearly as hard as being a full-time professional. And, you know, maybe in your perspective it is, but this is their first time balancing a lot of the new things that are going on in their world. And so as their mentor, one of the best things that you can do for them is just help them find balance. So the first way that I like to help a student find balance is just asking them, what do you want to say yes to in their life? The reason why this is such a great question is because it helps them identify exactly where they want to be and what they want to do more of. See, so often we get bogged down and out of balance, out of sync with our lives and ourselves because we are unclear as to what are the things we want to attract in our life. And the only way for us to attract these things is by putting it out into the ether and identifying them specifically. So by asking the question, what do you want to say yes to in your life? We are much more likely to get ourselves into a point where we're able to identify what do we want. And so literally by the law of attraction, we're able to clarify what we want to say yes to more in our life. Now, the second question I like to ask is, what do you need to say no to? The reason why this is such a great question is because it allows people to be consciously aware of the bad habits they have. It allows people to be consciously aware of, like, okay, I know that I do these things and they're not good for me, but I do them anyways. And oftentimes if we keep them a secret, we can keep doing them perpetually. But if we can be consciously aware of them and tell them to the world, we are much more likely to eradicate that bad habit from our life and from ourselves. The third question I like to ask to help a student identify balance is, when do you feel pulled off center? This is a great question to ask because it allows them to identify the specific moments in time when they are not themselves. And the reason why this is so powerful is because it's about pattern shifting and priming people and breaking people's pattern, because ultimately people get into ruts because they're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. But by asking them, when do you feel pulled off center, you allow them to be consciously aware of the times that they're feeling pulled off center, and therefore they can get out of that rut. They can actually say, oh, wow, I'm in the middle of it right now. I'm in the middle of a bunch of bad habits. This is what I don't want to be doing anymore. I'm pulled off center and now I'm really stressed out. Now they can consciously become aware of it, and they're much more likely to actually overcome it. The fourth question I like to ask is, what contributes to this feeling? This is a great question to ask, because now it gets back to the reason why they feel this in the first place. Like, people get pulled off center because they feel a need to do something. They're not irrational. Like, people feel pulled off center because they feel a need to live up to their parents' expectations, or they feel a need to live up to their friends' expectations, or the expectations of their professors, or just their own internal expectations. People can contribute to this feeling of being pulled off center because they feel this need or this desire to be somebody that maybe they're not, and they feel like they have to say yes to everything. And ultimately, if we can clarify what we want to say more yes to and what we need to say no to, we can actually really strategically and systematically eradicate the things that are pulling us off center. The fifth question I like to ask is, when do you feel most grounded in life? This is a great question to ask because it allows your student to get an idea of what keeps them feeling centered, what keeps them feeling like they're in a scenario where they can feel connected to those that they love and those that they're trying to serve and the people that they like to be with and just the things that they'd like to be doing. When you ask, when do you feel most grounded, it allows you to get an idea of when they're getting into flow. Really, flow is what this is all about. That's what this question is all about. It's really helping you get an idea of what gives them flow and when they're in flow. The sixth question I like to ask to help a student with balance is, what in your life takes away from what might be possible for you? These are very similar questions, but it helps you more specifically clarify exactly what is the thing that's holding them back. So if you ask what in your life takes away from what might be possible for you, it allows them to specifically target this person or this thing is holding me back. And how can you minimize that? That's something that's so critical. So the last question I like to ask in terms of helping a student find balance is, what in your life adds to who you are? What in your life adds to who you are as a person? And those are people, those are things that you want to surround yourself with. By asking your student these balanced questions, you help them gain clarity as to what they would like to be doing and where they would like to be going in their life. And ultimately, by asking them these questions, you can help them be a better professional, better college student, just a better person as they achieve the goals that they've set for themselves. So those are the keys for this mentor workshop this evening. I'd love just to open up the floor. Do y'all have any questions for me? Post in the comment section if you do. I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'll give it a couple minutes. I'll take a sip of water. Well, if there are no questions, I just want to reiterate how grateful I am for you as a mentor. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, this program cannot exist without you and your support and your willingness to be a mentor. And I'm so grateful for you and your efforts to be a mentor for your student and for your just participation in this program. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I'm really grateful for you, and you're doing amazing work. Just being here for your student really has a massive impact. And I just, if you don't realize that, you should know this. And even if you feel like your conversations aren't like life-changing conversations, you are changing their lives. We know that students who have a mentor in college are nearly 3 times more likely to thrive than students who do not. So let's see if y'all have any questions now that there's, been a couple of seconds to kind of process those questions. So one thing Megan, my colleague, recommends that I bring up is books that I recommend reading. One book that I really enjoy, I mean, the obvious book is Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you haven't read that book, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's like an incredible book. It is the book for really building strong bonds with other professionals and other people. But another book that I really have enjoyed recently is a book called Play Bigger. Play Bigger it's a marketing book. It's about how you can better market a lot of times your business or your service. But I think as young professionals and as young college students looking to get their job, Play Bigger is all about how we can differentiate ourselves when we're selling ourselves to employers, to trying to land that job or that internship. So really, it's a great book for identifying how you can do things differently and put yourself out there in unique, different ways. Because ultimately, if we're following the path that everybody else is pursuing, our chances of landing jobs are essentially out of our hands. But the more likely and more willing we are to try new and unique ways to getting ourselves and putting ourselves out there, the more likely we are to be successful. So Play Bigger is a great book for that. I highly recommend it if you've ever considered it. Brian, you've got a great question. The questions make sense, but seems to be a lot. How do you assist someone in narrowing their focus when trying to get them to see themselves in their own eyes? Well, I think that's a really great question, Brian. And this is something that I'll provide suggested questions for this in future workshops. But if I'm hearing you right, the question is, how can we assist someone in narrowing their focus? And this really goes back to setting the vision in the first place, but narrowing their focus is all about helping them get a clearer idea of what they like to achieve. Now, granted, you have your own life experiences that you've had up to this point in time in life. So there, you have your own bias. I just want to recognize this, Brian. You've got your own bias about how you've accomplished what you've accomplished and how you think someone else can accomplish their goals. Now, the best way to go about giving this advice is not actually through the form of statements, but through the form of questions. So the best way you can do this is to be genuinely curious as to what they'd like to accomplish. So, maybe your student says something very vague, like, I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. And there's not a path for how they want to be a millionaire. Just, I want to be a millionaire. I'm just hypothetically making this up. If they say something like this, you could say, okay, that's awesome. What do you think would be a really fun or cool vocation, job, career path for you that can allow you to make $1 million? They might say something like, well, I don't really know. Like, okay, well, what interests you? Where do you want to get started? What is the thing that just genuinely makes you happy and excited about your work? Like, you can make $1 million, you can make money doing anything, but the question isn't about how much money we're making. It is about how satisfied we are with the work that we get to do. And so that's where we can start to give advice through the form of questions by asking them clarifying questions and just being genuinely curious into their situation as to where they like to go. Now, I've got no idea if that's what your student had said. I'm just making it up. I know I've seen some students say things like, I just want to be a millionaire, and they've got no plan or action for how to go about getting there. I think it really just starts with what makes you genuinely happy. Once you identify what makes you genuinely happy, what are you willing to do to help you get there? So then you're doing the things that you love to do while also earning money. Because you can make money doing a variety of different things. It's not about necessarily what you're doing. It's about how you're feeling when you're doing it. And so that's how you can really help your students clarifying exactly what they would like to do. And the way you can do it is just by identifying what do they enjoy doing? What makes them happy? What makes them tick? And you can identify a lot of that through some of those flow questions. So one of the questions is, what in your life adds to who you are? That's a great flow question. Or what do you want to say yes to more in your life? Or what is one thing that seems impossible, but with a little luck and a lot of work just might be within reach? Those are all great questions that you can ask to help your student just identify what they specifically want to accomplish. But great question, Brian. Hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if that was helpful. Let me know if there are any other questions. If you have any questions after this, you feel free to email my colleague Megan at support@ambition-in-motion.com. But yeah, if you've got any questions, I'll give it a couple more seconds. But yeah, my 2 books for today in terms of recommendations is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, and then Play Bigger. I forgot the author of Play Bigger. Actually, I can look it up on my Audible. I do Audible, while walking the dog, I like to do the reading. Sometimes I find it difficult to find the time for that. Play Bigger by Al Ramadan and Dave Peterson. That is the author of Play Bigger. Big fan of that. Awesome. Brian, I'm glad that answer was helpful. Everybody, thank you all for being here. This was a wonderful workshop. Thanks for your active engagement in the comment section. I look forward to continuing learning about how your mentor experience is going with your student. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. See you, everybody.